Right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women Veterans Alliance, our Unconference Speaker Webinar Series. My name is Melissa Washington. I am the CEO and founder of Women Veterans Alliance, and I want to welcome you all here today. And if you are aware or not aware, we have our annual signature event, which is the Unconference, and that was supposed to take place next month in Las Vegas, but with the pandemic, we unfortunately had to postpone, which we will be back in Vegas October of 2021. But we didn't want to not have our speakers connect with all of you. And we've been doing this since last month. And just real quickly, before I get into introducing our speaker, if you haven't connected with us on the different social media platforms, we are on all the platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, and of course, YouTube. And that's where you'll be able to find this recording, as well as of all of our past webinars, and well as additional content that will be on our YouTube channel. So you can just type in Women Veterans Alliance on YouTube, find us, subscribe to us there. And like I had mentioned, excuse me, before, is we've had our different lineup of different speakers, and we're coming, unfortunately, to the end, but again, you can watch them, all the previous ones on YouTube. And next week is our final one, so make sure you sign up, and you can sign up the same place on our webinars page on our website to sign up for next week's. So without further ado, because I don't want to take up her time, because you're here to hear her, not me. So I wanted to introduce Ariel Shivers McGrew, and just a little bit about her. She's a published author, a counselor, an advocate, entrepreneur, and of course a veteran. She possesses the ability to show up with authenticity, vulnerability, and courage. Her unrelenting passion and commitment to empower others to drive important social initiatives forward with agility and focus makes her a sought-after leader in many arenas. And I'm so glad to finally meet you, even though we're not in person yet. But and I'm so forward to looking forward to hearing your presentation. I know others here as well. So it's all yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's an honor to be here. Basically, I'm going to talk to you guys about the value of voice, and we're talking about voice dynamics, but not in the way that you would traditionally think of sound coming out of your throat, more so about your ability to take the right action, almost like you know what to do, you just have to figure out how to do it. Next slide. So this entire workshop will be about human being identity level stuff. And I'm going to tell you how to use this, and you're going to be introduced to 3 characters. Most of my slides aren't there, but that's okay. One second.
Hold on. Can anyone else see the slides? Because it should be on there. There's a picture of the farmer, the wife, and the jackass.
It's not showing on mine, but that's okay. I know the story. So
well, yeah. Is anybody else, if they can just quickly on chat, just if you can just shoot us a message if you can see the screen or not, because I can see it. Anyone can technically help us out real quick? Anybody?
Can't find the chat, but I can't see anything on the screen.
You can't see anything either. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna keep it moving along. We'll work it out and we'll put it together.
You keep going. I'll work on my end.
So I'm gonna introduce you to 3 characters: the farmer, the wife, and the jackass. Right now, we're gonna take an official moment to take a deep breath. It's very important that you listen to everything that I tell you in the next part of the story. Let that deep breath go. Once upon a time in the 1850s, there was a farmer who mustered up the courage to tell his neighbor that he wanted to take his daughter's hand in marriage. So he did what he could, saved what he could, and then eventually he went over to his neighbor. He was awarded the daughter in marriage. She finished seamstress school. He said, "What would you like to do? How can I show you that I love you?" She said, "Let's go west. Let's hunt for gold." So they load up the wagon. They start setting out from Ohio to the Wild Wild West. Somewhere in Kimball, Nebraska, the donkey decides he's been walking for a while, he's hot, he's tired, so he takes a rest. The farmer looks at his wife lovingly. He gives her a kiss on the cheek. He says to her, "Is everything okay?" She says, "Yes." He says, "Are you in this for the long haul?" She says, "Yes." He says, "Okay." He gets out of the wagon. He goes up to the donkey. He gets down at the donkey's level. He looks the donkey in the eyes. The donkey looks him back in the eyes. And then he gets closer to the donkey's ear and he whispers something in the donkey's ear. And then he gets up and the donkey gets up with him. And he looks at his wife lovingly, and then he looks back at the donkey and he goes, "That's one." This is an unofficial rest stop. Take a moment to take a deep breath and reflect on everything I just said. You were introduced to the farmer, the wife, and the jackass. Okay, let's finish our journey. So they're trucking along. They're telling each other stories about their upbringing. They're doting words of affirmation on each other. And he leans to get his wife's hand to kiss it when it unclaspes and there's a sudden stop. The donkey is sitting again. The farmer looks at his wife lovingly. She looks back at him. She says, "You know, we're almost there." And he says, "Do you trust me?" And she says, "Yes." And then he looks at her again and says, "Are you in this for the long haul?" And she says, "Yes." So he gets out of the wagon. He walks up to the donkey. The donkey looks at him and then breaks eye contact, stays where he is. The man takes a deep moment to reflect. He looks at his wife, he smiles, he looks at the donkey. He takes 10 paces away from the donkey and then he turns around and he starts charging towards the donkey and he lands a nice, clean, solid kick into the donkey's gut and the donkey lifts himself and he's standing. And he looked at his wife and he looked back at the donkey. And he goes, "That's two." This is an unofficial rest stop. Take a moment to reflect on what you now know about the farmer, the wife, and the donkey. Release that breath. Let's continue our journey. They're moving along. They're almost there. The sign just says 20 miles, and they can make it. But the donkey decides he needs yet another rest. So he stops. The farmer is in complete disbelief. He looks at his wife. He smiles. She smiles back at him. He gives her a kiss on the cheek. He says, "I'll be right back." He slowly and calmly gets out of the wagon. He goes around to the wagon's backside. For about 10 minutes, there's noise, clamoring, still. And then you see the farmer coming up on the left side of the wagon towards the donkey with his shotgun. His wife has a look of horror on her face. She does not know what's about to happen. He goes up to the donkey. The donkey looks at him. He maintains the eye contact. The farmer looks at the donkey. A tear goes down his face. He wipes that tear. Pow! His wife jumps up. "Oh my fucking God, are you crazy? Why would you do that?" And he looked at her and he goes, "That's one." This is another unofficial rest stop. Take a moment to take a deep breath and reflect on each part of the story you heard. You met the farmer, you met the wife, you met the jackass. Melissa, there's a slide that says, "Whose voice did you hear?" Whose voice did you notice when I told you about the farmer, the donkey, and the jackass? You can unmute yourself at this point.
I noticed the wife's voice when she freaked out at the end, what the fuck, why'd you do that? And also the farmer's voice. Just as soon as you said "that's one," I thought of like a parent counting down to their child, And then the second one, he hit the donkey, and I was like, okay, he's an abuser. And so I kind of anticipated the third one.
That's a perspective. Is there one more, maybe? Thank you, Kayla.
The donkey's voice as well. Like him stopping to rest and making eye contact with the farmer, and like he's saying, "Hey, I need a break," and the farmer's like, "No, you don't get one."
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's a powerful voice as well. All right, so I won't make you beholden to this slide. So the jackass is kind of like a lot of people in our lives. We know what they're capable of. They do great work. They're amazing. But oftentimes they don't use their words to communicate because they just don't know how. So they use what they have at their disposal, and they're communicating the best that they can. But if you're a person who's principled and you're situated in your boundaries, nothing violates those boundaries. And the farmer is someone who sticks to his boundaries. He knew what he wanted from the very beginning. He often checked in with his wife to find out if she was in it for the long haul. But the wife was just along for the ride, the way he internalized it. And because he is so set in his boundaries, you don't get a third chance. He had already asked her the question 2 times. Do you trust me? Are you sure you're in this for the long haul? And when he showed her who he really was, and then often in our lives, people do show us who they really are, we somehow didn't notice all those red flags prior to. We didn't check them. We didn't question them. We have a moment where we know what right and wrong is. For her, it was wrong to kill that donkey, but in this moment, she needs to take action. She needs to use her voice in a different way. But if you understood what the farmer said, there is no third chance. She's already on one. This is an official rest stop. Take a deep breath. Think back on each time we took a stop. Every time I told you a part of the story. What do you need to let go of? In what way have you not used your voice and have been trucking along to a destination that you may just have to complete a journey by yourself? For the farmer, it was identifying a very specific emotion in himself. Nothing should stop him from getting to his goal. And the person he wanted to be on his team had to communicate that they wanted to be there. But it wasn't until he showed her who he was, how he voiced his value about his family life and his journey, did she suddenly have a moment where she actually had to reflect. Do you place your value in others, the experience, or the hope for outcome? These are things to think about, because oftentimes when we're communicating our values in the workplace, we don't necessarily sit down and actually reflect on how this is going to play out for the long haul. If this is going to propel us to those careers that we have dreamed of, or if we actually need to rely on other people, sometimes the right team, not just anybody on the team, not anybody just willing to be a part of the ride, but people who are willing to do part of the work too. The donkey is no longer a part of the scenario. She said she was in it for the long haul. She may possibly have to carry her load now. And that means looking at, what have you been emotionally wedded to? Has it been the right things, or has it been the wrong things? Do you recognize the value in your lived experience and what it means to give it voice? One of the slides we show a hand. The farmer's hands are dirty. He's used to doing hard work. He knows what it takes to build something. He knows what it takes to see something to fruition. In many ways, he voiced it over and over again to his wife. I need you to be here for the long haul. I need you to be ready for this journey. I need you to trust me. Her response was very automatic by default, more often than not. That shows up in our workplaces too. Are you just responding, going along to get along? Or are you recognizing that that's a boundary for you, that you need to say something? Because in the end, it's going to work out better for you. So you are not left with trying to figure out what to do. But the question we started with was, what if you already knew what to do? So how do you do it? Every time we took an unofficial rest stop, the farmer knew what the next step was. It was just about how to get it done. And if the donkey wasn't willing to play his part, he wasn't going to be able to go to the next level, to the next state, to the end state, which is where the goal lies. Next slide. So you guys can come off of mute, and these are just simple questions. Simple based on how they're written, maybe not simple in how you actually delve into it. What do you believe about yourself has been out of focus? So I asked you, whose voice did you hear? But the story was never a focus on the jackass. It was never a focus on the wife. It was on the questions. What type of questions are you asking yourself? Because you can't have answers without questions. There's value in the learned and lived experience. So you need to voice those. But you also need to unpack that and explore, what are you not focusing on? Is that part of the bigger story? How has that helped or hurt you in your life? And then how is your life currently aligned with your most important values? I don't know what your values are, but I know what mine are. And I know that if I'm not having fun doing it, and if I am not feeling as if this is something to be inspired by and do every day, then it is probably not an important value to me. But I've learned how to communicate that. And then what price would you charge for your story? They left with all their belongings. And really the only thing he had to show for all of his belongings after the death of the donkey was his wife's commitment to the long journey. That in itself is a different type of value that we express. And do you think your story matters? If we had told this story differently from the perspective of the wife, you think that would have mattered? If we'd have told this story differently from the perspective of the jackass, do you think that would have mattered? It's all one scenario. It's all one destination. But sometimes the way we use our voice isn't always clear. It isn't always demonstrating what we place as our personal values for the journey towards what we want to see in our futures. That went by really fast, but I'm open now for any questions or feedback that you may have.
You asked what voice we heard.
Yes.
I actually, sounds kind of weird, but I heard my own voice from when I was raped. I guess like the desperation of like, wanting to stop what's happening, but knowing you can't.
Yes.
And then the following questions you asked, I think I've let that experience hold me back from being really open and trusting in like romantic and intimate relationships, because it was my ex-husband. So, that's holding me back from, having a happy and successful relationship with someone and being able to get married again and have a family, and, which are things that I really, really want, but it's hard and it's scary.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, it is hard, it is scary, but when you actually know how to act on your voice despite opposing pressure, it becomes the best practice in self-esteem you could have ever gifted yourself.
Yeah, self-esteem is a big part of that for sure. I think I blame myself for not seeing, like you're talking about the red flags, like not seeing them, and then a big thing happens, and then you go, oh, this is something I need to address.
Right, before you stand up and go, what the right?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess, I don't know, do you have any advice on like how to recognize those red flags before it gets to the big moment?
I do. Be advised, this is recorded and it will be shared publicly. So if you want me to respond on this recording, that's fine. But if you want to go into depth because rabbit holes happen. I'm a psychotherapist as well. I just have to invite you into that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm 100% game. Let's
All
go
right.
down the rabbit hole.
Well, I'm glad you said that. Notice our image. Let's roll the dice. I think there are a variety of ways to notice that. For that young lady, that's a representation of being in a manic state, being swept up into what I call the exhilarating, stupid experience of falling in love, right? You just lose all your common sense. You don't question anything. He says he's going to give you money in the world and you move towards it, right? A lot of times, just like jobs, right, are taking on a role of a wife, a girlfriend, etc. Those are they require their own performance antics. Sometimes what is happening is we're getting caught up in an emotional state that doesn't allow for us to question anything. You can't have answers without questions. When he said, are you in this for the long haul? There's simple ways to follow up with that. Well, what do you mean? Physically, emotionally? In what way are you asking me to be here for the long haul? That matters. So when you're getting ready to be in these relationships and something says, that doesn't feel right, I need to ask about that. That's how you give your voice value. That's how you step up to the plate and say, even though this is scary, I need to ask you this. Because your lived and learned experience is actually like a guide at that point. That's just a stronger backing to your intuition. There are also a variety of ways to look at this through emotional states. How are you feeling in the moment? Do you ever feel comfortable around this person? Or is it whenever they're around, you're on edge suddenly? Do you feel like you can't be yourself? Do you feel like it's okay if someone else says it, it's fine for now? Are you actually putting yourself on mute, or are you learning to turn up the volume in your own voice? The volume is for you. It's really, the louder you can be with what you need, the more it resonates with others around you to be able to give to you. And then I would say additionally, you got to check your thinking. What is it about that person that you want to be invested in? What is it about that scenario that you're getting something out of? What is it about how you're working that scenario that allows you to feel like, okay, I'm content with this. Like this gives me enough.
That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't quite thought about I guess I just saw that tiny voice telling me like, hey, is this okay? I've ignored that a lot, and going ahead and asking the question anyway, even though it's scary, that I needed to hear that.
No worries.
I do have a follow-up question, if that's okay.
Of course.
So the second piece of this is it happened while I was on active duty. My ex-husband was active duty as well, and just being in a male-dominated environment in the military, that kind of became a challenge, especially after the attack, because I was afraid of it happening again. And now that I'm out of the service, I'm pursuing a degree in math, which is also going to potentially lead me into a career path that is in a male-dominated environment. And I guess I was wondering if you had advice on like how to handle that scenario.
Sure. It's gonna sound like I'm being snarky, but I'm not. But who are you? Like, who do you think you are? Because that matters. If you're showing up in spaces and you're saying, oh, these men, that's giving power away. That's not valuing your voice and speaking up for what you represent or bring to the table. So if you know who you are, that in itself speaks volumes.
Okay, so I mean, just like a self-empowerment kind of thing. Like, you know what, I know I'm smart enough to be here. I know I can do the job just as well as they can.
Right, but not self-empowerment as a practice of like self-esteem. So self-esteem is not an affirmation. It is a practice. There are 6 levels, there's 6 pillars to self-esteem. You have to actually work through them every day. You can't just tell yourself you're competent when you're feeling down. You tell yourself you're competent, you take the actions that make that competency concrete. where when you walk in a room, you don't have to speak. They understand. That's what you start to represent. So if this math degree is what's most important to you, why do those men matter?
Well, damn. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They don't matter.
Well, it's the story, right? If we'd have told this story from a different angle, you would have heard it differently. You're hearing a voice that's not yours. Your voice says, I'm great, I've been through some shit, but I'm strong, I'm tough, I'm resilient. That's what I hear. But then I hear you telling me something different that doesn't sound like, it doesn't, so if your life is a Netflix original, the price that you would charge for this story, I wouldn't buy it, because you're telling me that all these other things do more for you than what you can do for you, and that's not true. You can do so much more for yourself if you just understand what it is you're trying to communicate, how you're going to communicate it. For you, it sounds like love, self-knowledge, self-empowerment, but you have to practice that every day. And you practice that by voicing it. When you voice things, you minimize their effect on you, but that's how you start your healing.
Okay, I think that I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Okay.
You mentioned the six pillars of self-esteem.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that something like you could send a link in the chat, or could you?
Sure. Yeah. You know what? The audiobook is on YouTube. So you can listen to the audiobook.
Fabulous.
It's called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. It's really great. So I'll put it in context, and then I will open it up to the next question that's out there. And thank you. I hope that you're receiving this. I'm kind of in your living room right now. I hope that I'm not like messing it up too bad.
Oh no, you're perfect. You're perfect.
Well, one day we'll get there. So the 6 pillars of self-esteem, the best way to simplify this is, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's rooted in positive psychology. And he says that on each base of the pyramid, there are different levels you have to achieve. At the apex of that pyramid is self-actualization. Under self-actualization is self-esteem. Under self-esteem is love. But before you can get to any of those 3 pillars, you must first feel safe. If you don't feel safe speaking over your own life, it's probably more difficult to speak to things that you're not in agreement with. So you have to sit with self and understand all the ways that you've offered discounts. You've let people think what they wanted about you. You haven't stood up for yourself. You recognize that that might be something that could be fixed. All that is still rooted in your self-esteem. If you work through those 6 pillars of self-esteem, you get closer to self-actualization, or as they say in the world of social media, you become unfuckwithable. Doesn't matter what anybody says, what anybody does, you know who you are at that point. They haven't walked a mile in your shoes, and they didn't ask any questions. Remember, you can't have answers without questions. So at that point, they're creating stories. And if I am the person who holds the key to what you narrated about your life, then I can edit it accordingly, which is not fair to you, because at some point people need to hear your side of the story. But the only way to do that is if you own it and you speak to it, because there's value in that lived experience. It's beneficial for someone else. Is that clear?
Yes, that's crystal. That makes so much sense.
Okay, cool. Anyone else have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, you have such good energy.
Hey, you. Hi, everybody. How's my sisters doing out there in the country?
Not too shabby.
All right. Hey, well, first of all, I want to thank you for your time. I did jump on this call a little late, but I hope that what I'm going to ask is not, been already covered.
Have at it.
So, finding your voice, using your voice and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I remember back when I was in the military, like so many of us, incidents happen, and we try to use our voice, and the powers that be and the systems at play shut us down, or we're so afraid to, use our voice because it's been used against us. And then you get into corporate America or wherever, we land after military, and we use our voice again and again, the system continues to barrel down on our voice. So, you know, we end up in therapy for that, you know, because we try to use the voice, but no one listens. How do you pivot and just continue to like care for yourself?
Well, that's a really great question. And I think there's a lot of intricate intersections in there. So it's not just the system or corporate. Sometimes it's knowing, well, I don't know how far you were when you came here, but I am a licensed professional counselor. I've been a therapist for 8 years. And that's how we use tactful disruption to boldly edit workplace italics, is we kind of help you address some of the stigma you're operating in. I would say it depends on the culture of those organizations. But in the same way that the culture of the organization presents itself, you have to look at that as, is that a family group that you don't care for anyway? Because that may help you navigate that space. Or do you have a persistent trait that shows up that manifests itself as a little quirky thing in your personality that might need to be addressed so that the tone makes you more receptive? Because I think sometimes people can use their voice in a way where it's like, you have to say to them, I can't hear you in that tone. And it's that simple. And then there are opportunities where you just actually have to find where your interests are, where your skill sets would be best utilized, and use your voice in those environments, and it will be welcomed. Your voice would add to the collective. But if being shut down doesn't actually like spark a little fire in you, then you definitely need to get out of that environment. But if someone trying to shut you down just kind of amps you up, like I'm a fighter like that, so it's like somebody's trying to shut me down, I'm going to prove you wrong. Not only am I going to cross my T's and dot my I's, but like in my mind, I'm like, I'm cold-blooded, you know, like I'm going to go do the research. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to stand firm on that, because as long as you have a solid foundation, it's probably harder to break you.
Yeah, I've left a few positions because of my voice, you know, because I will go all the way up the chain, you know, but yeah, this is just an interesting conversation. Again, I thank you for sharing your time with us.
Oh, was that helpful to your question?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm working with the VA right now in that area of identifying a new career path because, you know, being in fight mode all the time, you know, and that's the thing. Being a woman of color, even using my voice in a very nice, loving, you know, tactful, positive way, you know, some of my counterparts still think I'm rude, so I can't win.
And sometimes, and I get it, I do. But I don't let that become the sole reason. I let myself exist someplace. And I know in time when you unpack that, because it sounds like you're dealing with what they call spoiled identities. The reference for that would be Irving Goffman. The book is called Stigma. But when you're dealing with spoiled identities, there's a way that they behave that you just have to learn how to outmaneuver. But you and I can talk or chat about that offline. Actually available to anybody in this group, I do run a free emotional resource for all those things that are going on with you. And that's in partnership with DBSA. So if you need help unpacking it, we can unpack it. But I think it always looks different the way you communicate it. Sometimes the reframe is necessary, but reframings often take a little bit longer than we expect.
Okay, then. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any final questions or thoughts? Well, thank you guys for tuning in and allowing me to be part of your day. Melissa, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I hope that you got something out of this. And I'll just recap by saying, knowing the value of your voice is knowing how to act on your values when they're in direct opposition to pressure, and owning the narrative that your voice has to be the one to tell.
Thank you. This was fantastic. I was actually sitting here writing notes. So, and one of the things that I really like that you said is I can't hear you in that tone. And I think that's something very important for all of us too, because a lot of times we do get that. And I love that response. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to have to use that.
Have at it.
I will, absolutely. And then of course the self-esteem thing too, the hierarchy, and it's something we always, hear reference, but, and thank you for sharing that YouTube link. That's great to have. And I also liked the terminology you use, help unpacking it, right? Because we have all this stuff that's packed. And I think that's a great terminology and a great way for us to look at it, because we carry so much load, and to be able to have someone that could help us, that's licensed to help us. Because I know a lot of times too, we look for help in Facebook groups, and a lot of times that help isn't really probably what we need.
I'm glad you said that.
Right? I mean, it's sometimes people probably shouldn't post because you never know what you're going to get. And I appreciate that. And also too, to know about your group, and if whoever's on, if you could see online too, you've got your contact info, the tactfuldisruption.co. And then also too on Instagram, LLC Tactful. So that's a great way to connect with you. And and this just brings a lot of things to me as far as thinking about, we need to do something else, a webinar, because I know a lot of things that you said resonates with a lot of the women on here and myself. And I think there's so much more that we can continue to talk about that will help us be even better people, better women, just better in life. And just, again, a lot of what you said resonates with me. And this is definitely something we need to continue to help to improve ourselves. So.
Oh, I received every word. Thank you so much.
No, I'm very serious. This is some good stuff.
Oh, thank you. I really meant it. I received all those words. I'm what they call an expressive. If you ever have an opportunity to learn your social style, I highly recommend it. My social style is that of an expressive. So I'm a creative by nature, but my art is therapy, right? And I love the way that it can be introduced, but the way that therapy was going, it wasn't accessible. So Tactful Disruption was created to make it accessible, but those peer support groups, it's a free emotional resource. DBSA already got it paid for, and then I facilitate them. They're every Sunday at 6 p.m. It may say female minority veterans. That literally means females are the minority veteran group, fastest growing subdemographic. You can join. Nobody cares what color you are, so please don't not come because you think it's for Black people only. Like all the love is there. So I really want to say thank you guys for letting me talk to you. And if you ever have a moment where you're just really dealing with somebody, think about the farmer, the wife, and the jackass. Really think about if you've had to talk to somebody more than 2 times about something that's just not going to fly, and you've had to correct them the second go round, don't give them a third opportunity. But make sure that the people who are going along for the ride can actually pull their sleeves up and do the work. If not, you got to start letting some of this stuff go. You got to start letting some of these people go. And you got to start actually working on your self-esteem, because that's a practice. It's every day. It's not an affirmation. I know y'all go to Instagram, you get that quick therapy with these memes and quotes, but that's not real. Doing the work is real, and the work starts with self. So find your voice and use it.
Very good. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. And also too, for those, we will share the recording link on YouTube once we get that up there. And fantastic. I, again, greatly appreciate it. All right. And everybody enjoy the rest of your day.
Before you sign off, could you just tell us what the YouTube channel name is so that we can find the video?
Yep. Just type in Women Veterans Alliance.
Okay, great. I will do that. Thank you so much. And thank you, Miss April. You seriously life-changing advice. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, love.
You too. Bye, everyone.